My beef with the millennials, and I realise I'm saying this as an old man from Generation X, my beef with the millennials is that to the extent that they are revolting, they're revolting against the good things about their parents' generation and their grandparents' generation, and they're accepting all the bad things. That's my real problem with them. So the good things that they are revolting against is firstly the idea of racial equality. We heard earlier about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Do not compare yourself to these people, please. Because the whole point of Martin Luther King's outlook on life is that people should be judged by their character, not their colour. Millennials do the precise opposite of that. They encourage racial thinking. They are obsessed with race. They think you should interact with people depending on what colour they are, what sex they are, what gender they are, what sexuality they are. You must constantly watch your language depending on the race or gender of the person you're dealing with. It encourages divisiveness and racial thinking, rather than the kind of thing that their grandparents or their parents might have argued for, which is that character is what counts, not skin colour. The other good thing that they revolt against is sexual liberation. One of the good things that came out of the 60s was the idea that sex could be fun, particularly for women, who for years and years have been told that they shouldn't enjoy sex because it was just something that men enjoyed, not women. And the idea of radical feminists in the 60s and 70s was that actually sex was a laugh, it was good fun, and you should be able to do it whenever you want with whoever you want. The millennials are completely revolting against that. You can see this in their sexual consent classes, which are ridiculous, and also their whole argument against drunken sex, for example, or regretted sex, or bad sex, all these things which they are increasingly redefining as rape, because they A, don't understand what rape is, and B, don't understand what sex is, so they're kind of very confused on that. And then the third good thing that they're arguing against is freedom of speech. The one good thing that the 60s generation and the 70s generation did was argue for freedom of speech, particularly in the countercultural arena, the idea that you should be able to publish literature and art and films and all those things, however offensive they were, that you should be allowed to do that stuff. They were very much in favour of freedom of speech. Today's millennials are not. Anything which they deem offensive or harmful or shocking, they will no platform, they will ban, they will rail against, whether it's Robin Thicke's song Blurred Lines, which has been banned on 30 university campuses. It reminds me of when I was at convent school and the nuns used to turn off the radio when Madonna came on. I mean, that's exactly the same situation. Or they banned the Sun newspaper because it used to have naked women in it, and all these ridiculous, prudish, Mary Whitehouse-style things. So they revolt against those good things, racial equality, sexual liberation, freedom of movement, and they accept all the bad things about their parents' generation, completely uncritically. Like, for example, environmentalism, the most deadbeat, depressing, anti-human ideology you could ever imagine. They love that. They embrace that nonsense. And they also embrace the therapy culture. One of the worst things about the 60s, which is why I'm so glad I was born after the 60s, is that they were all into therapy. They were all into talking about themselves endlessly on couches. They completely buy into that therapy culture. They completely buy into the idea that human beings are fundamentally fragile and they need this kind of scaffolding of therapy around their lives in order to help them get through every day, effectively. And just on that, finally on that point, what I really think that therapy question reveals is that they're not revolting at all. They're actually conforming to what their parents and their grandparents' generation expected, which is that you should constantly demand not freedom, but recognition. Not liberation, but validation. You must constantly ask officialdom and others to validate your identity, to validate your sense of mental ill health, to validate your victimhood. They are actually conforming brilliantly to the script written for them by that older generation in relation to the idea that people are fundamentally fragile and need constant help. In fact, I can't think of any other generation in living memory which has conformed so spectacularly to the older generation's expectations that they will be weak and pathetic.
If you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you'd like to stay up to date with my videos, please subscribe. If you would like to be notified via email whenever I release a new video, please click the bell next to subscribe. If you have any comments or questions or would like to go into a dialogue about this topic, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive in the UnityProcess.com. Be safe, be sovereign, be well.